Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Knives here on A Dose of Drew. And tonight we have the Jack Wolf Knives Gunslinger Jack. This is the frame lock version, not the slip joint. Comes in fantastic. Should have done probably an unboxing. This is actually a really cool packaging that's well worth checking out. So it didn't do the unboxing. There's tons of stuff that comes in. It's got this cool little pog thing. This cool little... right, the little whatever that's for. You got your own little thing. Very cool packaging and unique. Definitely unique in that little can style. And very cool. And yes, I did get the black DLC, the black titanium anodized with the purple haze kieranite, the purple swirl. Very, very cool. For those of you who do not know, there's several different models, slip joints and others, and the black and purple almost always goes ridiculously fast. It's always the first one to go. It's very cool looking and all that. But let's get into some of these measurements. First off, on the more empirical objective ones. We are looking at 7.5 tip to tail and about 3 3/8 tip to scale. So pretty good numbers there. 7.5, 3 3/8, just under that 3.5. It's a little over that 3. Hits a lot of good spots. Let's get some weight on this bad boy because it is relatively lightweight. So get on there. But just under 3 ounces, a little over 2.5, but still under 3. Fairly lightweight for what it is. That's actually pretty decent, and it sits very well. Fairly decent deep carry on the milled clip. Pretty cool. Inside screws, all sorts of fantasticness. And we'll go another little bit here. We will go when it comes to some measurements. Let's get this 1.115 inches or thereabouts. So a little under 3 millimeters. And then we'll get, this is going to be an interesting one right behind the edge. Oop, slipped off. It's about 13. All right, it's about 13 thousandths behind the edge, but it's really hard to get it exactly. Oh, slipped off. So maybe it's about 15 thousandths. Somewhere around 15. 14. 15 thousandths behind the edge. Looks like my battery's going bad. But about 15 thousandths behind the edge. And of course, it is a deep, full hollow grind. That hollow grind goes from the spine all the way to the edge. So it stays close to that 15 thousandths way up. And it's a fairly large radius. I don't know if that's going to show up quite as well. Fairly large radius wheel. We're talking fairly decent. So it's going to keep it way up. It's going to keep that thinness a good halfway up the blade. Doesn't make it as great for slicing through other stuff, but it does have some nice bonuses. All right, so let's get to some of these relational measurements. There is the paramilitary 2 in relation to the size. As you can see, not huge. It's definitely not huge, especially slim in certain dimensions. And the Para 3 lightweight, as you can see, very, very much closer to the lightweight in length, or to the Para 3 in length, blade length, and all sorts of other stuff. Much closer to the Para 3. And that's not necessarily bad. It is small, relatively lightweight, and it comes from a slip joint platform, which is pretty nice. All right, and so it is just a blur. As you can see, very similar again. The sizes are close. And not just any leak, but a random leak. Very close to the leak as well. Lots of hand space. Hand space is pretty darn good on the Jack Wolf. There's no doubt about it. It reaches quite well. Has quite a bit of girth in the hand. And the Benchmade bug out, very similar in size. Cutting edge, close enough, but very, very similar in size, right in that EDC sweet spot. And of course the Civivi Elementum, once again, that EDC sweet spot right there just seems to be quite well done. A lot there for it. And, of course, as with everything, we must compare it to my Wiener. As you can see, it might be slightly longer, and though my Wiener is thicker and has more girth, it is just not as stylish as the Purple Nurple. All right. All right, got that out of the way. Let's get into some of this damn nice criteria, the design, aesthetics, mechanics, noteworthy points, intended purpose, cost to value ratio, and expectations, and of course, damn nice, sir, if there's any requests. All right, so first things first, the design. This is a classic clip point with a gunstock, dogleg gunstock style. The little curve on the back. And just to fair warning, the dogleg gunstock is one of my favorite classic grip styles. It is one of my favorite classic styles as far as how this goes. And this does a wonderful job. I am a little bit more used to them with a slight angle on the back here, which often tends to look more like the tip out here. But which makes it a little bit nice if you're choking back on it and using it for long reach. But it is pretty cool. And it's very, very classic. The classic gunstock style with this really, really rounded clip point that is like almost like a spade blade that's been clipped off. Very, very cool. Very classic design. I am not a fan of the slip joints where they have the tip that is pointed anywhere past the central pivot area, as it tends to put pressure down if you try to use the point and break the slip joint. On a frame lock, you don't have that problem, and that is really the Gunslinger Jack is one of the few frame locks that they have. They do a lot of classic stuff, and for those who don't know, it is S90V on the steel. With that thin grind, that's going to last. That edge is going to last a long, long time. But yeah, so the design, great. Classic ergonomics of the dog leg or broke back on there. So you get that nice sit in the palm, lots of grip. Instead of finger swells, you just kind of have this little jag right there, this little change in width, which really kind of gives you a space for your two fingers. It gives you even got a little room to choke up on this bad boy, which is really, really, really nice. The aesthetics, it is classic. This is a classic style with classic lines and classic looks, and they do, and especially in this color combo, the purple, the lavender purple full back spacer, the purple Kieranite, the black titanium, the DLC S90V. This is hard to say it doesn't look good. This looks, for anyone who likes knives, this thing just looks cool, right? It's got the clip point, which gives you that classic knifey shape. Beautiful swirly Kieranite with all of those nice, metallic swirls and all that stuff. Gives you lots of unique look. Very, very cool. Very classy, I dare say, in that it has a lot of shine and gives it more in the look of just like a stabby pokey piece. It gives it the look of something a bit more refined, and it is highly refined in its design. Mechanics of the flipper tab, it is on bearings, I believe. Let me double check here. Yeah, it looks like it's on bearings. A front flipper you can use. Tends to be better to slow roll it, as this being just small, but it can be done. And that finger pull, that long pull there, that finger pull, perfectly fine for reverse flicking with great action. There's just enough room to get that disengagement on the frame lock and have it come down. Plenty of room on that sort of ricasso area to hit your thumb, so it's not going to give you a little knife bite, and just really, really good action all around. Very, very linear, smooth, and controllable. The force you slam it down with is a pretty linear as far as how it goes down. Very interesting. Very easy to use. And, hard to complain about. The frame lock, the Kieranite itself is the over travel stop. Gives you that sort of bolster lock kind of feel. Very, very cool. Very useful. Very classy. Looks very much like especially with that long backspacer, very much like the slip joint, and gives it that long, old-timey classic look in a good way. Noteworthy points about this. Look, this is not a cheap knife. This is a classic style in modern materials with modern manufacturing techniques and tolerances, and it is fantastic. The noteworthy points are literally everything about this knife. The purple kyanite you rarely see on anything that's retail. It has its downfalls as far as its ability to be tough, its rigidity, its brittleness and all that sort of stuff, but it's basically acrylic, so it has a fair amount of toughness to it. The big, long, full hollow grind, another noteworthy point. S90V, noteworthy point. Titanium frame lock, noteworthy point. This is absolutely noteworthy for everything that it is. An old world classic, noteworthy point. Extremely well thought out lines where you can see the lines match up. The matchup and the execution is fantastic. And I think that really pulls to its intended purpose. They don't make any bones about it. This is an old classic style in a brand new modern manufacturing method. Titanium, not steel, kyanite, S90V, all that sort of stuff that you just don't see on a lot of slip joints or a lot of classics, this has. And as an EDC knife, which this most definitely is, for it to do the standard EDC stuff, it actually is outstanding. It is a package piercer. That frame lock means you can use that upswept tip, that clip, the clip tip there to really get in it and do piercing tasks. It is a shrink wrap slicer. You can not only choke way up to get it, you can, with this sort of clip, you can even really control that tip. If you're trying to go through some thick plastic or something, you can really control it so it doesn't push out. Very, very good. Cardboard carver. The S90V is going to do a wonderful job of holding its edge. That thinness behind the edge means it'll get in there, and the cardboard being stiff, the hollow grind won't really mess with it so much. It'll just give it a little bit of gap, and it should go through quite easy with the relatively thin blade stock, just under 1/8 of an inch, just under 3 millimeters. And that S90V is going to be a very, very good cardboard carver. And envelope eviscerator, extraordinaire. It already has a really good reverse grip for doing it. You can get that right into there and just open the envelope, no problem. Does those EDC tasks outstandingly. Does it all while looking really good with high-end materials and high-end execution and attention to detail. That's what this is. That's not only its intended purpose, it's the noteworthy point. This is a high-end modern classic, and that's its intended purpose, and it does it very well. There's a reason that these worked for years for people in EDC tasks, and they loved them. It's a very good design that does EDC tasks very well. And that brings us to the cost to value ratio. I mean, let's be real. This is like a $300 knife. You can find them cheaper. You can find them in the 200. But this is not an inexpensive knife. Do you get that value for it? Objectively, no. There are other knives that have S90V that are possibly even cheaper. In fact, for those who may or may not know, you can get S90V for around $120 to $150 if you know where to look. You know, the little friend here, from Knife Center has been on sale sometimes. That's S90V. It's a Boker. It's very well done. Got a nice big blade, right? It's a Vosteed design. It's fairly well known on that. So you can get this much, much cheaper, probably close to half price. Does that make this a bad value? No, because this is the look, especially if you find the version that you really want, the look, the classicness. There are some people who only want that classic style. And I'm not upset with that. I think that's a really good thing to look at. What's wrong with it? Nothing. It's fantastic. It's a good knife. And that really brings it down. Is it high? No, it's probably about, here's what's like. It's about 75 objectively on cost to value. It's relatively low. You can get a lot of good knives that do EDC tasks for cheaper, that are very similar performance to this. But if you are someone who likes the classics, right? You like the classic style, you like how it works, you're a big fan of that, you like not only supporting American companies, but being able to support a company that is making modern classics. And that's pretty much what Jack Wolf Knives does. They do modern classics. And if that is something you want, the value question becomes different because there isn't a whole lot out there that does it like Jack Wolf knives. If this is the kind of thing you like, there's not a lot out there, and the cost to value ratio becomes much higher because this is what you want. So in that sense, it goes up. It's in the 90s. If you're a modern classic aficionado, you're someone who just, that's your kind of knife, this becomes a much better purchase because you're not going to find anything quite like it. There's not as many high value modern classics out there as this. And this is one of the best. And I actually expected that from Jack Wolf knives. These have gotten lots of good reviews. They are becoming very well known for high quality. And I actually like that. I expected it to be well done. I have been, quite honestly, still surprised by how well it is, how well the tolerances are, where the Kieranite comes in. I know personally how hard it can be to machine and do that stuff and not have the acrylic chip out, and to have the smooth lines that match. I mean, look, those tolerances are really tight. Those tolerances are incredibly tight. I have seen other knives from Chinese manufactured stuff that are high end that don't have that kind of tolerance on the inlays and stuff. It's very, very well done. And the mechanics, I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit off, maybe the mechanics to be much more like a classic, but the mechanics are extremely modern and very well engineered and tuned for a very linear and usable drop that isn't going to cut your fingers off, and a front flipper that you can either slow roll or clip, the ability to get a fingernail in there and use that drop hole. The design has been extraordinarily well thought out. There is so little about this that can be done, that can be said it wasn't. One thing, it's not reversible. This is a right-handed knife only, or at least right-hand biased knife only. So there is that. And really, the only request I would possibly have when it comes to this is when it comes to the colorway, because anytime you see a Jack Wolf drop and they have this purple and black, the DLC in the purple goes instantly. They're gone. They're hard to keep in stock. They really do go fast. If there's one request I have, Jack Wolf knives, look, you guys are getting the feedback from the people who buy it. Stock more of the Kieranite, and maybe do a couple other than the purple. Maybe do some of the other Kieranite colors out there because they have multiples. So as much as I love the purple haze, it's pretty obvious to anyone who's trying to buy these that this is the fan favorite by far. Doesn't mean the other ones aren't good, but being able to stock more of these or get a couple of different colors in what is an obvious fan favorite would probably be my request. You know, that's the rest of it. It's S90V. It's titanium. It's a beautiful, well-designed and well-executed knife that's really hard to complain about. Extraordinary in its attention to detail and very rewarding in its action, and just classic in its design while modern in its mechanics and execution. So this is just a really hard one to say anything bad about except for the cost. And that's really where we get to. Design, modern, classic. What can you say about something that's been around for literally 100 years plus? The aesthetics, again, I think it looks good. That is definitely subjective. But the clip point, the Kieranite, the black, especially this colorway and color scheme, absolutely beautiful. The mechanics are very well thought out and extraordinarily well done. It's noteworthy points. It is a modern classic. It is a classic in modern materials and modern execution and modern machining and all of that. It does it well. Its intended purpose as an EDC knife, it does extraordinarily well. Its cost to value ratio is a little low because it's expensive, but you get value for that money. But it's still a little bit low because you can get a lot of similar materials for less money. But it does go up if this is your jam. If you're a modern classic or a classic slip joint type, but you want the modern conveniences, this is hard to do better than. There's other ones that might be similar or same, but this is kind of one of those things that it's just really hard to find something it's either equal, but there's very little that's better in that range. And that makes the value ratio go up if this is your jam. And of course, it is very well done. I expected it to be, and while it is a little bit better than I expected, that's always good. It exceeded expectations, even though my expectations were high. And I give it an overall, I give it an 85. Its design and everything is really high. The cost is also high, which brings it down a little bit. But it puts it square in the mid-80s. You can get more for your money. But again, there's so many things in the knife world that are subjective. This is hard to complain about because it really is something that's just absolutely beautiful. And that's where I'm going to leave it. You know, this is one that was requested by the viewers for me to get and review. So I went ahead and did that. Got it in there. So this is the Jack Wolf Knives Gunslinger Jack, the frame lock version of the dogleg gun stock. So they also have a slip joint, and the Gunslinger is the frame lock version for those who want to know the difference. Very good knife, about 85 on the overall value scale, and an outstanding EDC knife for a fair amount of money, but you do get quite a bit of value for that money, both in execution, attention to detail, and high-end materials. And with that, you guys, I'm going to bring this to an end because that has been the requested Jack Wolf Knives Gunslinger Jack. And this one is in the black DLC and purple Curanite, purple haze wave Curanite. And with that, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Go ahead, take this video, watch it twice. Comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.